So turn your Bibles, if you would, please, to Numbers chapter 23. The title of this message this morning before we worship is Keep Fighting the Giants. Keep Fighting the Giants. Great to see our son, Amy. Can bring your wife with you?
She's packing. She's stressed out.
Oh, she's stressed out. Okay. All right. So they're getting ready to move into a new house, and Mama's home doing whatever it is that she does. Hallelujah. All right, fantastic. So again, the title of this message is Keep Fighting the Giants. Okay? And the story that I want to look at here this morning is when God instructed Moses now to go send spies and go spy out the promised land. And it was because of the giants that they came back with an evil report. They were unwilling to fight the giants. And let me just begin with this statement here on Father's Day. Folks, I believe this, and listen closely to what I'm going to say. We need dads today who will teach their children how to fight giants.
Amen.
Obviously, I'm talking in metaphorical terms, but we need dads today. Where are the dads? Dads are more absent from the family unit today than ever before when they began first starting keeping statistics. Dads are absent. And what dads are left, and you young people, as you grow up as parents, not just dads, but we as parents, we need to teach our children how to fight giants. Because there are incredible giants in the world, and if we don't know how to fight them, and defeat them, and destroy them, and overcome giants, then we will be even as the children of Israel, who threw a titsy fit and just wailed. We should go back. Let's go back to Egypt. We'll get more into that in here in just a moment. But I want us to understand that, folks, what we need today are dads who will teach their children how to fight giants. I'm going to give us just a few clues to that here in just a few moments. But let's pick up the story. Numbers chapter 13, beginning with verse 1. They'd come out of Egypt now, and they had wandered for a while around Mount Sinai, and God had given them lots of things to create them as a nation, as His own people. And now it's time to go possess the promised land. Now it's time to go possess the Holy Land. And at one point, we're not going to read it here, but at one point God told them that wherever your foot steps, that will be your blessing. That will be the Holy Land, so to speak. You will be my people. That will be your land. So now, Moses, get some spies together and go out and spy the land that I'm promising to give you. So let's read it. Verse 1. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Send thou men, that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. That should be circled, those words. Which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of your fathers shall they send a man, every one a ruler among them. So Moses commanded of the Lord and sent from the wilderness of Paran all those men and the heads of the children of Israel. And then you can read some verses there, and it names each one. It names each man who came back with an evil report, who came back with a lack of faith, who came back and angered God above comprehension. Those are the names. So they go out. Now let me just fill in some blanks here without reading the whole story. We kind of know the story. But let me make this second assertion here before we get too deep into this. Listen now. God doesn't always give the plan. He just said, go send men to spy out the land. He didn't give them a plan. He said this, which I give unto the children of Israel. Go spy the land which I'm going to give to you. What's that? Oh. Go spy the land. That's good. I can do that. I can always use help. Reading the scriptures. Okay, how about if I read the scriptures? Amen. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the plan. Okay. He just said, I'm going to give it to you. But he didn't expound on the plan. He just gave his word. That's crucial to understand that. Okay, because God does not always give the plan. He just gives his word, or he just gives his promise. Then we are expected to go by faith, and as we go, God will execute the plan. You see, folks, listen to this now. Confidence comes with killing a giant or conquering our weakness. Confidence comes as we obey the promise or the word of God, and once we kill one giant, and then we kill another giant, and then we kill another giant, confidence builds and expounds.
Amen.
But God expects his people to just move by faith on his word or on his promise. Now, we know the story. They came back and they couldn't do that. So they go and they spy out the land. They bring back, figs, and they bring back grapes. And the grapes are so big, and the figs are just huge. The grapes are the size of, baseballs. And the figs are the size of softballs. They're gargantuous. In fact, they're so big and so abundant and luscious that they got to put them on poles, and they got to carry them on their shoulders because they're so big. I mean, it is truly a land flowing with milk and honey, the scripture tells us. Now, milk and honey, again, is a metaphor. Okay? It flowed with a lot more than that. But it was a land incredibly blessed. And God said, I'm going to give that to you. And so the men, they go and they spy it out. And then they come back and they say, yeah, Moses, here's the deal. Here's the fruit of the land. We show it to you. Man, is it luscious. Man, is it good. But there's one problem. There's one problem, Moses. Moses says, what's that? And they said, well, the land is abundant, but just as big as the fruit are, so are the human beings that possess that land. I mean, they are gargantuous giants. They are descendants of Enoch. They were huge. Goliath was the smallest of all of his brothers, the Bible tells us. Goliath, 8 feet 5 inches tall, 550 pounds, and he was the smallest of his brothers. Now here are these men going to possess the land about our size, and they see these giants in the land, and they come back and they go, you are not going to believe this. There's no way we can take that land. There's no way we can possess the land. We were even as the size of grasshoppers when it came to our appearance to the giants that possess that land. And so they brought back an evil report, completely dismissing. Listen now. You see, the whole thing is this, folks. They were unwilling to kill the giants. They were unwilling to go in and battle these giants. Now let's look at verse 30. Chapter 13 of Numbers. Now let's jump down to verse 30. And Caleb, so now the people are just freaking out. They're freaking out. All the people, the tribes of Israel. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. Now, that's a whole nother sermon. I don't have time to get into the attitude of Caleb, to the spirit that was in Caleb and Joshua. That's a whole different sermon. But here Caleb is trying to still the people, saying, we can go fight these guys. We can go defeat these incredible giants. Verse 31, but the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we had gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which came of the of the giants, and we were even in our own sights as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Now let's go to chapter 14 and look at this. Oh my word. And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried. Now we're talking probably, it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine, but there was probably 1 million or 2 million. I mean, it's hard to imagine. But they're in a valley, they're in an area where the sound of voice can carry for a long ways, can actually carry for a mile. So we can pack all these people in, and they can hear what's going on. And so you have this massive amounts of people, and they hear now that now they're faced with going in and battling these giants. That's what God has set before them. And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. Can you just imagine? And let's look at verse 2. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, Would God that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God we had died in this wilderness? Can't you just see now 1 million people throwing themselves down and having a tantrum? It's like the toddler, right? I mean, even we behave like that. So I'm glad I have 2 grandkids here, because I remember I used to watch them throw tantrums. And I just wonder, and I just said, when are their dad going to beat them? When's dad going to beat the child? And they roll on the ground, and they be grinding, and flailing their legs, and they just can't have this, and can't have that. And the world's coming. Here's 1 million adults doing that, all in one place, throwing themselves down, and they're crying, and they're willing, and arms are flailing, and legs are flailing, and they're rolling over, and they're rolling over, and they're rolling back over, and they're crying, and they're yelling, and they're murmuring against Moses, and they're just throwing a tantrum. What do you think God's standing up there the whole time, folks. And what do you think God's thinking? What do you think God's thinking? And God's thinking, did I not I told you I was going to give this to you. I told you I was going to give this to you. But because of the size of the giants, and because for a lack of plan, they were unwilling to even sacrifice, even go in and possess what God had promised. You see, folks, just real quick. We face incredible giants today, even in our world. I'm facing giants in my personal life today that I never faced 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I think if there's ever an expert, I think I can speak to what it takes to kill a giant. I think I can speak to what it takes to slay a giant. Here are just some giants. Giants of compromise. We have giants of compromise in our world today. We have giants of peer pressure for young people. Peer pressure for young people is an incredible giant. And as parents and as dads, we need to teach our children how to kill those giants, how to overcome that peer pressure. Giants of opposition. We have incredible opposition today, even in our own country, in our own world. The giant of opposition. Congress doesn't care about the United States of America. Listen to this. President Trump said something the other day about research. What a stupid question was asked him. Mr. President, what would you do if someone came up with information on a political opponent, and it was a foreign adversary, so to speak, and gave you some information that was against your political opponent? What would you do with that? Would you take that? Would you listen to that? And of course, President Trump said, so yeah, I would do both. I would probably listen to it to see if it had any validity, and if there was any problem with it, I'd turn it over to the FBI, turn it over, to the Justice Department and all those type of things. And the liberals, their heads are just exploding. They're just, blah! Okay, another treasonous. He's treasonous. We need to crucify our president, throw him in prison, and throw him in jail. Okay, here's the deal. But those same liberals, they have no problem with killing unborn babies. They have no problem with babies that are just being born. They're just born, and they have no problem with the doctor taking some snips and snipping the spinal cord of that little child that was just born. Mom doesn't want it. God only knows where dad is. Mom doesn't want the child. Nobody wants it. One, they're going to snip the spinal cord, kill that child. Then they're going to harvest everything from that little baby, and they're going to sell the parts. They have no problem with that. But oh my God, if the president said, I'm going to listen to a foreign adversary who might have information, negative information, on a political appointment, we need to kill him for that. We have no problem. We have no problem letting people into our country with Ebola and with measles and with all kinds of diseases. We have no problem letting criminals into our country. But boy, if the president's going to listen, you understand what I'm saying, folks? I mean, we got idiots. We literally got stupid people that have been set up to try to govern who are more interested in trying to kill the president for saying something, you know, that he's going to listen to a foreign adversary than they are worrying about people, the homelessness of people, the drug addiction of people, people that are literally dying, mental illness, physical disabilities. You even got, what's his name, who said that if you'll vote for me, I'll find a cure for cancer. Biden even stood up and said, if you'll vote for me to become president, I promise you I'll find a cure for cancer. Well, what have you been doing the last 46 years while you've been a senator of the United States of America, Mr. Biden? Is anybody outraged about any of this? That our world is so crazy today. We've got things so upside down today that it even now affects the church. That we think as a church that we're supposed to look more like the world so that the world will accept us. That's called spiritual adultery.